Good afternoon and welcome to Patriot Pets. My name is Lake Green and today we are at the old yellow meeting house in Cream Ridge, New Jersey in southwestern Monmouth County. Let's check it out. And so I must add that as I pan these grounds, the trip getting here from eastern, or I guess central Monmouth County, where I live in Howell Township, really is the southern central, was very, very quaint. I took a whole bunch of back roads, and the area around here, which is I guess modern day Millstone Township, was pretty much pristine. Rolling hills, farmland, so it really fit the bucolic, scenic vibes that you get from looking at this property. And so the house directly in front of us is the old yellow meeting house. It was first built, this building, in 1737, but a building had stood on this property since 1720 or even earlier. And so what happened was Rachel and Thomas Salter were a family that lived on these grounds, owned the land here, and they were in the iron industry. So they had an ironworks, a foundry here, and others in the early 1700s, other industries on their property. And in 1720, they deeded the land to Baptist settlers in the area for the purpose of worship. And so, as I said, there was an original structure right in front of us where the yellow meeting house stands today, which stood in 1720, and that was burned in a fire. And in 1737, following that fire, this home, or this structure, I should say, was built. And so the people that lived here and worshipped here were freehold Baptists, Baptist settlers that arrived in Monmouth County, most likely of English descent. Again, at the time, this is the early 1700s. Religious persecution is still running rampant. The English Civil War is ended by that time, but it's still a problem. And obviously, if you're from England and you're living in England at the time of this colonial era here, you know, a chance for a new life in a sparsely settled land would always probably be enticing. And so the people that settled here in modern day Cream Ridge, Millstone, Upper Freehold area, wherever this may be, really Cream Ridge I suppose, were Baptists. And they worshipped continuously in this structure in front of us from 1737 all the way through the 1800s, and to this day it's still cared by Baptists in the area. The grounds are still maintained. And there's actually the Friends of an Old Yellow Meeting House Society, which I think, you know, you pay to be a member of, and it's really all volunteer work. That's a parsonage right there. It looks like a private residence now, but in the corner in the back, that was a parsonage. And that is where church leaders would live. So the church was not actually permanent here until 1766. But there was a parson here by the name of David Jones, who in 1775 was the head of the congregation here, and actually left in 1775 to become a chaplain in the Continental Army. And he was known as the Fighting Parson, much like the gentleman that we visited in Marlborough a few weeks ago, or about a month ago, the old Dutch Reformed brick church. He was a chaplain in the Continental Army, and he became famous for his regular service, in which he was it was known as, quote, a defensive war justified and sinless. So he was using his religious influence to justify the conflict of American independence as one that was necessary. And so here's a close-up of the building itself. Again, erected in 1737 by the Freehold Baptists here. And before 1766, there was not a full-time minister here. These Baptists living here were at first part of the Crosswicks congregation, and they petitioned to be separate from it, and were granted their separation in 1766, and 47 families became full-time members of the congregation here. And they worshipped on this site from 1720 all the way through to the mid-1800s, right before the Civil War, 1855, when the church, the Freehold Baptist Church, acquired their main location in Millstone, which is nearby, and then this building was gradually phased out for regular sermons, and really was only used for special occasions. But it's wonderfully preserved. The interior is really beautiful. The wooden sections, all the sectionals, the boxes, the pew boxes, all rounded out for families. Each family would be assigned a box, likely. And just a beautiful property. You can see on the bottom of the building the characteristic orange New Jersey fieldstone foundation, native stone. You could tell that this is not a modern building at all. Either they were pulling the stones up from the ground right in the area, and that's what they used to lay the foundation. 2 doors to enter. The building itself was set up on perfect compass position, going from west to east, and that was because there's no electricity. And you need electricity. There's no electricity, you need light at all times of the day to be able to see inside the building. The windows are very thick glass, probably very old. Now, the architecture is English, the roof is English, structure is English, which would reflect the heritage of those who settled here. And the home behind us is a parsonage. It was a parsonage. It was built in the mid-1700s to house the people that were in charge of the clergy here. So there are numerous graves here in the cemetery. But some of the oldest go back to the 1700s. And so for this video, I'm not really going to spend too much time going through individual graves. There's a lot of local names that if you've watched my other videos, you'll recognize. Hendrickson, Perrine, others that are local to Monmouth County historically. But I wanted to highlight a few just for their historic design, the engravings and the stonework of early colonial America, and the angel wings on the top here, and also just the sayings. People would put so much time into writing elaborate, little passages, on the gravestone. So here's one of a person named Elizabeth, the daughter of Moses Robbins, who died August the 13th, 1790, aged 18 years, 11 months, and 15 days. But what's notable about it, besides the, very typical early American design, colonial, headstone, is the saying on the bottom. I thought it was beautiful. So it says, "Her flesh must slumber in the ground till the fair trumpet's joyful sound, then burst the chains in sweet surprise, and her Savior's image rife, being fully purged by Jesus' blood, file triumphant in her God." And then it is cut off at the bottom. Here is a notable grave. Looks like it's been modernized, but it says Bordentown, January 6, 1777. Honored and dear Father, I have this day joined the Light Horse. And on the bottom it says, it's hard to see because of the lighting. Hope you can see it. Jonathan Holmes, who died in service August 4th, 1777. Yeah. Jonathan Holmes, who died in service August 4th, 1777. So he joined January 6th. That's right after the Battle of Princeton, in which Washington's army was revitalized from the brink of defeat and the end of the war for American independence. Almost lost the war and won 2 amazing victories in Trenton and Princeton, which I guess isn't too far at all from here. So he was probably inspired by that, and he passed away, unfortunately, later that year in the service of his country. May you rest in peace, Jonathan Holmes, a true American patriot. And so this concludes my video of the old yellow meeting house here in southwestern Monmouth County, Cream Ridge, New Jersey. A very unique and interesting and storied history, and a unique example of early colonial New Jersey architecture, and a lasting example of a connection to early American history. Thank you so much for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'm Lake Green. I'll see you next time on Patriot Paths. Have a wonderful day.